Breaking tonight, emails surfacing in Hillary Clinton's private server scandal that may revive controversy over one of the most troubling episodes of her entire career, the 2012 Benghazi terror attacks that ended with 4 dead Americans. Good evening and welcome to the Kelly File, everyone. I'm Megyn Kelly. Hours ago, the State Department revealing new information on up to 30 emails that may be related to the Benghazi terror attacks. They were among the nearly 15,000 messages recovered by the FBI that Clinton's team appears to have tried to permanently destroy. 30,000 of them got deleted, only 15,000 were recovered. Fox News is learning that these emails, these 30 or so, may have been sent or received in the days following the Benghazi attacks. And if they were withheld from investigators, then their existence would fly in the face of Mrs. Clinton's claims that she turned over all of her work-related emails.
I responded right away and provided all my emails that could possibly be work-related. We went through a thorough process to identify all of my work-related emails and deliver them to the State Department. At the end, I chose not to keep my private personal emails. Emails about planning Chelsea's wedding or my mother's funeral arrangements, condolence notes to friends, as well as yoga routines, family vacations, the other things you typically find in inboxes. I think that anybody who's actually looked at this has concluded that I have now put out all of my emails.
Or not. Today, the Trump campaign releasing a statement writing, quote, if Clinton did not consider emails about something as important as Benghazi to be work-related, one has to wonder what is contained in the other emails she attempted to wipe from her server. Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge live in Washington tonight with more details on this discovery. Catherine?
Megyn, Hillary Clinton signed the statement under oath last August, telling a federal court that she had handed over all her government records. But tonight we know there are more emails, as many as 30 from Benghazi, that were found after the FBI did a forensic scrub of Clinton's servers. Fox News was told that some records come from the first week after the 2012 attack. The same week, then Secretary Clinton was at Andrews Air Force Base, where the caskets of 4 Americans were flown home. We don't know if these emails are duplicates of what's already out there. But if they are new and they were deleted by Clinton's team, it could reopen the Benghazi debate and re-energize reporting that Clinton told her daughter Chelsea it was terrorism and told the public an obscure video was to blame. Part of the FBI's Clinton file is getting released now because multiple media outlets filed requests for Clinton's interview after FBI Director James Comey said the criminal case into the mishandling of classified information was closed. We expect some sections of the FBI file will be blacked out for security reasons. President Obama's spokesman said today the White House is not involved.
I've seen those reports. I can tell you that the White House did not consult with the FBI about that decision or any of the other decisions that they've made in terms of handling some of the investigative material.
This week we expect more Clinton schedules from when she was Secretary of State, as well as parts of those FBI investigative files. And tonight there was no immediate comment from the Clinton campaign. Megyn.
Catherine Herridge, thank you. Joining us now, Mark Thiessen, a Fox News contributor and American Enterprise Institute scholar. And Crystal Ball joins us. She's a journalist and senior fellow at the New Leaders Council. Great to see you back here on Fox,
Good
Crystal.
to see you, Megyn.
Great to see you. Thanks,
Mark,
Megyn. It was great to see you, too.
So, Crystal and I go way back. I was her very first TV appearance back.
You were one of the very first, yeah, you were the first person who ever put me on television. So
it's great to
be back here with you.
All right, Mark, so let's talk Turkey. Hillary Clinton appears to have been caught. It appears, we don't know whether these are duplicates, but if they're duplicates, why didn't the State Department take the 2 minutes it would have taken to take just these 30 emails and say, are these in the stack we produced or not, before rushing into court and saying, we've got them, we need a month to determine whether they're duplicates?
It's quite remarkable. Look, if this report is true, and it is an if, then Hillary Clinton's been caught in yet another lie. I mean, we know for a fact that as she said to the American people, she turned over everything that she was obligated to turn over. We know for a fact that that is untrue. The FBI said they found thousands of emails that she failed to turn over, which now could include emails regarding Benghazi. And it's just the reason we don't give her the benefit of the doubt, Megyn, is because she's lied to the American people so many times that an NBC News poll just found 11% of Americans say she's honest and trustworthy. 56% say she should be charged with a crime. And 60% say that she believes the rules that apply to the rest of us don't apply to her. Americans sense this. And I just wonder, at what point will some Democrats step forward and say, enough is enough? You've got dozens of Republicans who have stepped forward and said, I will never vote for Donald Trump. Where are the never Hillary Democrats? Where are the Democrats who are so disgusted by this corruption, by this lying, that they will finally say, I will not be party to putting a lying kleptocrat into the Oval Office? Where are they?
Kleptocrat. Is that yours? That's got a nice ring to it, just in general. All right, Crystal, let me ask you, because even if you can't prove that, you know, she lies, right? There's certainly evidence that she misstates things a lot, especially when it comes to her emails and whether they were classified and what she did with that private service. So why does she deserve the benefit of the doubt on this?
Well, there's a big difference between being mistaken about something and lying about something. I mean, as you pointed out, we don't even know for sure that these 30 emails are anything different that she didn't actually already turn over. So they're looking into that to see if these are duplicates and see what information would need to be redacted. Furthermore, the Clinton campaign has been very forthcoming in saying, look, if you find more work-related emails, let's put them out. Let's have that transparency. They've welcomed that. So to me, that speaks to the fact there's no cover-up here. They're not trying to hide anything. Perhaps the process that the lawyers Clinton used to sort out the work emails from the personal emails, perhaps that process was imperfect.
No, clearly it was not.
But that's a lot different than saying that she lied to the American people, which there's just no evidence for, and which the FBI investigation found absolutely no evidence for.
Go ahead,
Being
Mark.
mistaken about something
That's not true,
and
Crystal.
lying
No,
are
Crystal,
two
I'm sorry.
totally different things.
Crystal, she said there's no classified information on my emails, which the FBI said was not true. She said there was nothing marked classified, which the FBI said there was nothing untrue.
Mark,
hold on.
She said
no.
To my
I am. I'm saying
she
said that there was nothing marked classified. There was nothing classified at the time. Also untrue. She has repeatedly lied to the American people to the point. I'm telling you, the poll is almost 70%.
Go ahead, Crystal.
Okay, you are pointing out things that are different from what she said, but it's different to be mistaken.
Lies.
There were 3 emails that had partial classifications. Where's the intent? Where's your proof, Mark, that she knew that was inaccurate when she was saying it? And that's what we talk about when, look, I get it. Hillary Clinton has been part of Washington for a long time. People mistrust Washington, and they've had Republican House members and Republicans going after her for years. So of course
it's not just about Washington. It's about her. I mean, even the New York Times today came out and said it's an ethical imperative for Hillary and Bill to cut their ties with the Clinton Foundation as a scandal emerges there about whether it was pay to play while she was Secretary of State. This is separate from the emails. And the question is whether it just stinks that the American people look at her and say, you think you're above the rules. Mark, I'll give that one to you.
Sure. Well, I mean, look at the Clinton Foundation. We just found out that one of these people that they sought access for, a billionaire donor to the Clinton Foundation, named Gilbert Chiguri, was barred, we just found out today, was barred from entering the United States for terrorist ties. He was convicted of money laundering in Geneva for helping the dictator of Nigeria, together with Mark Rich, plunder the country's oil assets and money launder the money. He was indicted by the Justice Department for a bribery scheme, and the Clinton Foundation not only gave him special access to U.S. officials, but they were actually negotiating with him to try and buy some of his land in Nigeria for a consulate.
Wow.
I mean, at what point do the Democrats...
A lot of information packed in there.
When do the Democrats just say, ick, gross, I don't want to be a part of this? Find me one Democrat that's willing to do what the Republicans have done for Donald Trump.
I'll give you the last word,
Megyn,
Crystal.
there are 2 things here. There's the appearance of impropriety, which I actually agree with the New York Times. I think they need to stop taking money from foreign donors, from corporations. They should go ahead and do that now and make it clear and be strong with that when she is the next president of the United States. But there's the actual allegation that there was pay for play, and there's just no evidence. The best that they've been able to come up with is that someone got a better seating assignment at a State Department function. That's hardly a scandal. So I think we've got to talk about the substance here, and the reality is that
people are never. But no one's saying it was a scandal that they got better seating arrangement.
But there's just no evidence that it was pay for play.
It was like, it felt like a lovey-dovey, you know, I don't know. There's no end to her power. Could she get me into the Polo Lounge here in New York?
So many coincidences, Megyn. So many coincidences. It's amazing.
I feel like you could get in on your own.
Kleptocrat. Great to see you.
Great to see you.
Breaking tonight, a pair of senators fighting to survive key primaries, and we have new race results for Marco Rubio and John McCain. Next. Plus, Pastor Mark Burns touched off a firestorm yesterday with a tweet about Hillary Clinton, and he tonight is creating new controversy with his follow-up. He's next. And then a bogus article about me trends on a social media website with more than 1 billion users. They said I got fired. What? This is really going to upset Nana, who does believe everything she hears. Although she doesn't go on Facebook. Should I sue my friends at Facebook? We have an update in this case. Stay tuned. Breaking tonight, we are keeping a close eye on several key congressional races out of Florida and Arizona. In Florida, the AP now projecting Senator Marco Rubio has won his primary. He'll face Congressman Patrick Murphy in November. Remember when he said he wasn't running again? Over on the House side, voters are deciding whether to keep former Democratic National Committee Chairwoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz in Congress or to replace her with a Bernie Sanders-backed law professor. We are also awaiting results out of Arizona, where 5-term Republican Senator John McCain is facing a tough primary battle 1 day after his 80th birthday. He is expected to win, but you never know. Keep you posted. With 70 days to go, 70 I say, till the 2016 presidential election, the Trump campaign is trying to gain traction with a variety of voting groups. First, with a speech tomorrow on immigration, and there are late-breaking reports today that he may be headed to Mexico for a meeting with their president, potentially, tomorrow. In advance of that, that's Washington Post reporting. And then with a visit Saturday to a predominantly African-American church in Detroit. But that effort has been overshadowed in the last 24 hours by a series of controversial tweets. Not from Trump this time, but from a top Trump surrogate, Pastor Mark Burns. The man at the center of this controversy is here. He joins us next live. But Trace Gallagher has the newest developments to get us up to speed first. Trace?
Megyn, as national polls show Hillary Clinton with an enormous lead among black voters this weekend, Donald Trump will hold his first event in a black community in more than a year, appearing at a predominantly African-American church and speaking with the president of a national Christian television network owned and operated by African-Americans. Trump is hoping to win over black voters by trying to convince them that minority communities have suffered because of failed Democratic policies. He repeatedly points to Chicago as a prime example. When news that NBA star Dwayne Wade's cousin had been shot and killed in Chicago, Trump went on Twitter using the tragedy to help illustrate his point, quoting, "Dwayne Wade's cousin was just shot and killed walking her baby in Chicago. Just what I have been saying. African Americans will vote Trump." The misspelling of Dwayne Wade's name and lack of condolences for his cousin were later corrected. But now prominent African-American pastor and Trump supporter Mark Burns is addressing his own Twitter controversy. Burns sent out a tweet late yesterday featuring a cartoon of Hillary Clinton in blackface, which, as you see, has now been changed. The original tweet depicted her using poor language to pander to African-American voters. And in the voice of Clinton, he wrote, quoting, "Black Americans, thank you for your votes and letting me use you again. See you again in 4 years." Pastor Burns has now apologized for the tweet, but says he stands by the message that Democrats take black voters for granted. Megyn.
Trace, thank you. Joining me now, Pastor Mark Burns, Trump supporter and co-founder of the Now television network. Pastor, great to see you tonight. Thank you for being here. So, first of all, originally you stood by the tweet with the blackface, and now today you come out and say that you are sorry for it. Why the reversal?
Well, you know, Megyn, I apologize for the offense of the blackface. Several people, obviously many people were offended by it, but I apologize. I moved past it. I moved on, because what's more important is that I don't apologize for the message that the tweet shared. It is a reality. It is a fact that the Democrat Party panders after African Americans, but they don't own up to the failed policies that has has caused many minorities in our country to be at the level that they're at, when in reality we're not developing at the same speed as other ethnic groups in this country. I mean, we've heard the reports over and over again that 54% up on food stamps, welfare is still at a high rate, home ownership is at a low. These are the effects of a Democrat Party failed policies, and somebody's got to stand up and say, listen, Hillary Clinton, we see what you do with your Southern twang and your pretending that you know these songs to church music, congregational songs, and you come in with your hot sauce comments, and you will do and say and manipulate your way to whatever you want to be in order just to win the votes. And in reality, you don't really care about black people.
Well, I mean, what do you make of the numbers? Because overwhelmingly, Hillary Clinton is winning with African Americans. I mean, in some states and in some critical cities, it's almost 100%. It's 99% of the black population to 1% for Trump. Are they all wrong?
Well, there's several factors, Megyn. For one, I mean, let's just be real. Number one, the Republican Party en masse hasn't, what I believe, done a really good job in reaching out to African Americans or minorities, which that's a whole nother conversation by itself, because to be honest with you, there's no such thing as an African American community. That is PC and the political correctness at the highest caliber. I mean, our politicians are darned if they do or they darned if they don't. If they don't talk about the African American community, then they are racist. If Donald Trump don't address the African American community, then he's racist.
Trump got in trouble. He got in trouble because, well, no. I mean, Trump got in trouble for many reasons. First of all, he appeared in at least a couple of interviews very slow to condemn David Duke. And then most recently, he sent out that tweet in the wake of Dwayne Wade's family member, his cousin, being murdered, without even a condolence remark. He instantly politicized it, was the charge. And so that enraged many African Americans. It hasn't all been, it's a Republican, we're against him.
Well, that's not what I was saying. The statement I was trying to, I didn't get to complete my statement. My statement was this. In our political climate, number one, Donald Trump is darned if you don't reach out to the African American community, and he's darned if he do reaches out to the African American community. When in reality, there is no such thing as the African American community, because this political PC world that we live in is almost as though we are putting all African Americans in one hurdle, one cattle herd, and so when you speak to one group, you speak to us all. Well, that's not the case. I have African Americans across the country.
I got to ask you one other question, because you sent out another tweet it turned out to be a fake picture of Hillary and Bill. In this one, they were at some sort of a costume party, and it showed her in blackface. It turned out it wasn't them. It was a fake picture, and I think you've acknowledged that now. I mean, do you need to be more careful in your messaging and with the Twitter?
Well, my message still stands. I still stand by. I mean, of course, obviously, that turned out to be a false picture. But, hey, people do make mistakes like Facebook. They're doing it to you right now. They're doing it to you right now on Facebook. With the false report.
But you're doing this.
Yeah, but the point.
I don't have Facebook here. I have you.
But the point that I'm making is, people make mistakes. But the point is, the message is still true. I'm standing behind my message. I'm not apologizing for that. Somebody got to speak up and tell the truth. It's going to be me.
It's great to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Megyn.
We will get to Facebook in a minute. Fired. Have you heard anything? Like my security card is still working, which is usually the way you know, right? Oh, I'm in. We also have breaking news tonight on singer Chris Brown. Remember this guy who assaulted his then girlfriend Rihanna? Now he's had an angry standoff with the police that just ended a short time ago, and we have the resolution. Plus, with the issue of race and policing exploding again this week, we will speak next with the man known as America's top cop, NYPD Commissioner Bill Bratton. Honored to have him here tonight. And then with the man who is becoming a leading voice on this issue, Sheriff David Clarke will share his thoughts as well. They may not agree. We'll find out. Breaking tonight, singer Chris Brown is behind bars this evening after lending his small part to what has become a dizzying 72 hours on the issues of race and policing. It began with 49ers quarterback Colin Kaepernick. I'm sorry, I don't follow sports. Kaepernick. Kaepernick, it's tough, refusing to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance this week and suggesting he won't show pride for a country that oppresses people of color. Today, Chris Brown became a story after allegedly threatening a woman with a handgun. In the middle of a standoff with police, he shared this charming message with the world.
And it's always going to be the police. Black Lives Matter. Y'all the worst gang in the world, the police. And I said it. You.
Right back to you, said the authorities, as he's now under arrest. In moments, we're going to be joined by NYPD Police Commissioner Bill Bratton for the first time in the Kelly File. Second time, right? And Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clark is here to weigh in after that. Trace Gallagher, meantime, is live in our West Coast newsroom with an update. Trace?
Megyn, from the time he was a Boston beat cop, Bill Bratton has been immersed in the issue of race and policing. In 1976, Bratton won the Medal of Valor after showing up at a bank robbery in the mostly white area of South Boston and confronting a black man with a gun to the head of a white woman. Bratton pushed his way through an angry crowd and, by lowering his weapon, convinced the gunman to lower his. In the 1990s, as New York Police Commissioner, Bill Bratton was nationally recognized for helping drive down the New York City crime rate. Bratton also led departments in Boston and Los Angeles, but shortly after Bratton began his second tenure as New York Police Commissioner, Eric Garner, a heavyset African-American man, was accused of resisting arrest and was placed in what appeared to be a chokehold by two New York City police officers. Garner died, reigniting racial tension against police. At the time, Bratton's policies were criticized as targeting minorities, and during his farewell news conference earlier this month, Commissioner Bratton acknowledged that it will take years to properly address this country's race relations. Watch.
The issue of race and community relations. We're on a journey, but it's not a journey unique to New York City. That's a crisis in America at this moment. The national election is revolving around it.
In just the 4 weeks since the commissioner made those comments, the issue of race and policing has become even more prominent in the presidential election. Here's Donald Trump being asked about Colin Kaepernick's decision to sit during the national anthem.
I think it's personally not a good thing. I think it's a terrible thing, and he'll maybe he should find a country that works better for him. Let him try. It won't happen.
We can't find any comments Hillary Clinton made about Kaepernick, but he certainly made some about her, saying if she was any other person, she'd be in prison. The controversial quarterback also called Donald Trump openly racist. Commissioner Bratton says he'd like more time to address the issue of community and race, though he steps down next month. Megyn.
Trace, thank you. Joining me now, NYPD Commissioner Bill Bratton. Great to see you, Commissioner. Thanks for being here.
Great to be here.
What do you make of Colin Kaepernick's not standing?
I don't support it, certainly. That I think it's something that we all need to be concerned with, that we live in the greatest democracy in the world. We should celebrate it. It's not flawless, but that type of disrespect, I think, is very inappropriate, particularly somebody who's being paid $10, $20 million a year to get onto a sports playing field. Not an appropriate place to express your concerns.
And then you saw it also at the MTV Video Awards with Beyonce, who's got a ton of influence as well, making pretty clear that those were, supposed to be angels shot by police officers, black people shot by police officers, and the advancement of a narrative that the cops are out to get, especially young African-American men in this country.
And that is not the case. That is the reality if you look at the statistics. But unfortunately, that is the perception advanced by some, embraced by many, and that is at the heart of the current controversy, current crises I referred to in one of the clips earlier. I've been in this business for 45 years. This issue has permeated police and the community relations for all those 45 years. Situation was much worse back in 1970 when I entered policing in Boston. As a young police officer, young sergeant, young police superintendent, dealt with the desegregations of the Boston public schools, desegregation of Boston public housing, incredibly violent times, incredibly disturbing times. What we're dealing with currently is a continuation of that, But we've made a lot of progress that we focus on the issues, but we've made a lot of progress.
People look at Chicago. I mean, and you are credited by many, including Time Magazine, with cleaning up New York City. You and Rudy Giuliani. He's a big Trump supporter. You don't want to get political, which I understand. But you have been critical of Donald Trump publicly. And one of the things that you did is clean up the crime in this city, the violent crime in New York. And when you came back to New York, you've done it again. And the crime numbers are going the right direction. So people like Donald Trump look at a city like Chicago, and that's why he's out there on the campaign trail right now. Worst gun violence, worst murders this past month that they've seen in 20 years. And he says, if you elect me, you can walk down the street without getting shot. That is how some people view their communities, no?
Well, unfortunately, crime is up, particularly violent crime, in many of America's cities. No two cities are alike. We haven't referenced Los Angeles, that during the time I was chief of police there, crime went down. Race relations improved at the same time, to the extent that the LA Times editorialized that finally, after 50 years, a corner had been turned on race relations. So you can have reduced crime and you can have improved racial relations.
What's the key? I mean, we've got limited time, but if you had to narrow it down to one key thing, what is it?
Police and community shared responsibility. It isn't the total responsibility of the police to address this issue alone. It is a shared responsibility among the criminal justice system. It is not the responsibility of the community alone to address it, but there is a shared responsibility. That's what democracy is all about.
Why don't you want to endorse anybody in this election? I know you appeared at an event with Hillary Clinton, but you came out and told CBS News that he scares the hell out of you, to be quite frank with you. You said of Donald Trump, the lack of depth on issues, shoot from the hip. You say you just shake your head.
What I also indicated is that I'm willing to meet with either of the candidates that are remaining in the race. Would have met with any of the candidates when we had many more. Similarly, in the run-up to the last mayor's election here in New York City, I had met with most of the mayoral candidates, many of whom had very different points of view about what to do about crime in New York City.
You work for Bill de Blasio and Giuliani. I mean, it's like, what? Wait, what?
And I might add, successfully.
You should be Secretary of State.
Crime went down during Giuliani's time, and it's continued to go down during Mr. de Blasio's time.
All right. So you could get behind a Donald Trump presidency if he were to win in November.
Well, the good news is in 70 days that you're all going to have to find something else to talk about, because the current Trump-Clinton issue is going to be behind us. Then there'll be one person to focus on. So those 70 days can't go by fast enough.
Amen to that.
Amen to that.
Great to see you.
All the best.
And lots of love to your beautiful wife. So joining me now with reaction is Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clark. Sheriff, good to see you. What about that? Community policing, the greater connection between law enforcement and the community. What's the problem with that, if any? Because why aren't we just seeing that everywhere?
Well, first of all, it's a two-way street. Any relationship is a two-way street, and what we're doing too much of is focusing on what the police can do better. Everybody can always do better, and I try to do that with my organization every day. I tell them, I need your best, we can get better, but nobody focuses on some of the things that are happening within the community. Why is it that young black males don't respect authority? Why is it that so many young black males will not comply with the law enforcement officers' lawful commands to take them into custody or
okay,
leave
but you
an
know
area,
what the answer to that is. The answer to that is, when you hear this often from many in the African American community, if there is a community, our last guest was saying you can't say that, which is I feel like I'm going to get shot, driving my car down the street. I'll tell you just anecdotally, I have a good friend who's African American, who's an investment banker, and he says he drives his car in his suit in New York City and is constantly afraid he's going to get pulled over and potentially shot. So, it's a large issue faced by many African American men, as you know.
Megyn, you're cutting in and out. I'm getting bad audio feed here.
Sorry,
It's not
Sheriff.
the first time it's happened here.
Sorry, I hope you can hear me now. My point was simply that it is a real fear, and it's a real fear by many African American men in particular.
Megyn, I'm only hearing every other word. I got a bad audio feed here.
Oh, I'm sorry, Sheriff. My apologies to the audience and to Sheriff Clark, whose opinion we wanted to hear. I still have Commissioner Bratton here. I'm going to use my minute. What do you say to that? The genuine fear that men in particular of color have, that they're going to get hurt by the police.
Whether it's a perception, whether it's a reality, it's still something that has to be addressed. In New York City, that we have really sought to particularly over these last several years, address it in a lot of different ways, and doing it with some success. That in this city of 36,000 police officers, my officers last year fired their firearms a total of 65 times in a city of 8.5 million people.
Wow.
In 33 of those situations were combat situations in which my officers were being attacked or fired upon. So that fear is really, in this city, based very much on a perception, because the reality...
Which the media feeds, because whenever they have an incident, they play it over and over and over again. And then in this case like Michael Brown, there's no follow-up when it's proven that the, quote, victim in that case was, in fact, the person who was the aggressor against the law enforcement
even the
officer.
tragedy of Mr. Garner, that we have had 2 deaths attributed to potentially a chokehold in the last 20-some-odd years in the city of New York, in a city that makes 300,000 to 400,000 arrests a year. But we focus a lot of attention on it because we constantly try to learn how can we do it better and more safely.
Great to see you, sir.
Okay.
Again, we'll get Sheriff Clark on. Our apologies to him. Our apologies. Up next, why some Trump supporters worried he may soften his stance on immigration are now looking to Rush Limbaugh on this issue, who finds himself caught in the crossfire. Stay tuned. Developing tonight, we are less than 24 hours away now from a major speech by Donald Trump that will outline his stance on immigration. In recent days, Mr. Trump has been accused of flip-flopping. He himself said there may be a softening, and the anger over that possibility has spilled over onto the Rush Limbaugh radio broadcast. Listen.
And I just distinctly heard you say it's not considered a flip-flop. And I just want to tell you, you're doing a disservice to all of us Republican primary voters who didn't vote for Trump, that are struggling with whether or not to vote for Trump.
Well, in the first place, I don't think Trump has actually changed that much from what he said. And I'm also not aware that he told every Republican they had to agree with him or else.
With all due respect, Rush, on Chuck Todd's show, he specifically said, when asked the question, you mean you're going to rip the families apart? He said, no, I'm not going to rip the families apart. They all have to go, even the U.S. citizen children. You know exactly what he said, and you know exactly the way he ridiculed everybody on that stage.
Yeah. Well, I guess the difference is... or not the difference. I guess the thing is, this is going to enrage you. I can choose a path here to try to mollify you. I never took him seriously on this.
But 30 million, or 15 or 10 million, 10 million people did.
And they still don't care. My point, they still don't care. They're going to stick with him no matter what.
But this is why Trump is going to get annihilated. Because nobody called him out early on about his absurd policies.
Yes, they did. For crying out loud, 15 candidates called him out. Everybody was calling him an idiot.
Except, unfortunately, the #1 place where Republican primary voters get their news.
And then he seemed to imply that he was talking about Fox News. Brent Bozell is president of the Media Research Center. Brent, good to see you. Although it was,
hi, Megyn.
You know, Rush was confused about what he meant there. But listen, there's been a lot of finger pointing, right, in the GOP, and a lot of what feels like a civil war between the people who support Trump in the party and the people who don't. And that was just a reflection of some of that. Your thoughts?
Exactly. This isn't about Rush. This is about the fractured nature of the Republican Party and the fractured nature of the conservative movement. Look, anything Rush says is going to trigger a reaction from someone calling himself a conservative, saying that Rush Limbaugh has betrayed the conservative movement. This is the nature of politics this year. That caller, if Rush were that impactful in this crazy year, when Rush Limbaugh said that Ted Cruz was the single most conservative candidate in the race, then Ted Cruz would have won the nomination. Look, the Trump people, Rush is absolutely right, the Trump people are lockstep with Trump, and the people who aren't with Trump, I think they're going to be with Trump, but right now, like this caller, they're having a very hard time. Rush is caught in the crosshairs.
You tell me. I mean, there's no question Rush is incredibly powerful and incredibly successful, but he's not omnipotent, and he's not all, you know, he can't do it all. I know Rush rather well. Back in 2008, he was behind John McCain. Back in 2012, he was behind Mitt Romney. It didn't carry them over the finish line. You know, I mean, I think some in the Republican Party want to demonize, let's say, Rush or Hannity or whoever it is for getting behind Trump or not condemning Trump, just the same as you know, it's happening the other way as well. People want to condemn the Never Trumpers for not getting behind a party nominee who's obviously extremely controversial.
If Rush were to say something critical about Trump, then there would be the furious backlash in the opposite direction about how he is costing the Republicans the election by going after the nominee. This is what I mean. You can't win this year. It is the craziest year ever. And I think what people have to do is take a deep, deep breath and understand Rush was advocating conservative principles long before any caller was calling him.
And he is a broadcaster. I mean, that's what he is at heart. He's not a campaign manager who needs to get a non-Trumper elected. He's a broadcaster. In any event, the recriminations have only just begun. I'm sure we'll be hearing many more of them over the days and weeks to come. So we'll see a lot of Brent, and it's great to see you, as always.
Thank you, Megyn.
Also tonight, a phony article about yours truly manages to climb its way to the top of Facebook's trending feature. Fired! What? So, can I sue my friends at Facebook? Iglarsh and Andel are here to weigh in next. So earlier this week, Facebook started pushing a false story about yours truly. The headline read, "Breaking. Fox News exposes traitor. Megyn Kelly kicks her out for backing Hillary." Yeah. What? They did this on the very first weekend that Facebook, stopped using real live human beings and instead entrusting their trending feature to an algorithm. So, should I sue them? Joining me now, defense attorneys Mark Iglarsh and Andel Brown. So once again, Mark, the rhythm method fails, and they learn the hard way that they should not be entrusting their feature to a bot, right?
Right. Yes, and thank you for selecting my law firm to sue Facebook for millions. There's only one problem, Megyn. I gotta manage my client here. There's this little thing called actual malice, which public figures like you need to prove. And Nana told me that you are a public figure, and unfortunately, we're not going to be able to win.
No. So, Andel, I have no desire to sue Facebook, nor anybody else, because I really don't like lawsuits, which is ironic since I was a lawyer for 9 years. But, you know, that's what it does to you. But the problem is that, you know, Facebook and these other online sites that sort of put this stuff out there can really do this to actually a regular person who isn't on TV every night and doesn't have the ability to show people that it's a lie.
Absolutely, and the proof is in the programming. It's their program, they're responsible for it. And when you look at the actual malice, you also have to think about a willful disregard for the truth. When you're putting stuff out there and your fact checkers don't check it and it's going around the whole world trending, you're responsible for that. They have to be very careful to make sure this never happens again.
Well, I mean, there's so much false stuff on the internet. You can't even begin. It's like somebody else said I donated $70,000. Hillary was like, okay, I've never made a political donation in my life. And I certainly wouldn't be supporting either one of these two people because I am a reporter covering the race. In any event, when I saw that report on Facebook, this is what I looked like. This is what I wanted to do to myself. Watch this.
Oh my.
Yeah, this is how angry I was. And you tell me, you tell me, Mark, why we are looking at this woman and how this has become a legal matter.
Well, Megyn, you see, she's apparently alleging that a multimillionaire defendant punched her in the face, right? And he's also alleging that she stole jewels from him. Now, I can only defend her, since I drew the short straw with Andel, on one issue, and that is the stealing of the jewels. And there, I will tell you that
before we get to that, Andel, the bottom line is what her boyfriend says is she beat herself up and claimed he did it. This is her doing it to herself.
Objection,
I mean,
irrelevant.
Every guy's worst fear that someone's gonna, you're gonna get accused of attacking a woman. Nobody ever wants to have that. And now we have this woman beating herself up. Lucky for him, he had a camera and he captured it, and now she's not fooling anybody.
No.
See, he's not talking about the Jules case. Megyn, it was either Confucius, Shakespeare, or my friend Donald who said, she who punches herself in face didn't necessarily steal the jewels. It was something like that. Yeah.
Great to see you both. Interesting as always.
Great to see you, Megyn.
We'll be right back.
Good luck with the suit.
Thank you.
Finally tonight, the Kelly File is mourning the loss of a friend and frequent guest on our show. Joe Hicks died on Sunday due to surgery complications. He was a brilliant man who so eloquently spoke about race and civil rights. In his early years, he was a member of the Black Power movement, but later he identified as an independent political conservative. Just last month, he was here on the Kelly File raising questions about some aspects of the Black Lives Matter group.
Last week, 3 people were walking out of a liquor store in San Bernardino. People are familiar with San Bernardino because that's where the massacre took place. 2 black men and a 9-year-old boy walking out of a liquor store, mowed down by a black suspect. Where was Black Lives Matter? Did you guys mobilize in San Bernardino? Did you guys express?
Go ahead, Lauren Shivy. Joe will be missed. Good night.